All right, good evening. I have 6:30. It's Tuesday, September 17th, 2019. I'm Mayor Tome here to call to order the Columbus Common Council regular meeting. When you're ready, could you please take a roll call for us, Pat?
Gray.
Present.
Johnson.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Tylen.
Here.
Tome.
Here.
Traxler.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. If able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda and moving 4, 5, and 6 to the next committee of the whole.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda with the tabling of 4, 5, and 6 to our next committee of the whole meeting. Any discussion on the motion? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Agenda is approved. Correspondence and communications, I didn't see anyone sign up on the sheet this evening. Was anyone present this evening that didn't get a chance to sign up that wished to speak? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda this evening. That's the regular council and committee of the whole meeting minutes for September 3rd, 2019. Are there any comments, questions on the minutes in the consent agenda? If there are none, I'll entertain any action on the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion on that? If none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to new business number 1, which is consideration of resolution 15-19, resolution creating tax incremental district number 5, approving its project plan and establishing its boundaries. If you look through your packet, there was the resolution, but there were some other attachments, exhibits that were not there. Those have been handed out by Brian Reamer, who is a representative from Ellers here, and there's also a letter at your desk from City Attorney Johnson stating that he's reviewed the project plan and has determined that it is complete and complies with Wisconsin state statutes. Are there any questions on this? We have Brian here to answer questions on the project plan. I realize this is a lot of information that was just handed to you a few minutes ago. Brian, did you have a summary or anything that you had planned? Why don't you just give us a quick view?
Sure. This is for the creation of TID number 5. It'll be a mixed-use district. Kind of the main bullet points to understand, and you'll see, I'll point out the tables later on, but that the estimated project costs are for $1 million, and we've actually kind of optioned how you can do that in the future. So in the statutes for TIDs, you have to lay out how you're going to pay for these projects and what the projects are for. So you have to make sure that you kind of create that variability and give yourself that flexibility into the future. So that said, I can point that out on the future tables. But outside of that, we're projecting that the additional land and improvements will value approximately $4.8 million. The increments that will be created will be able to cover those project costs at those $1 million. Actually, and so forth, that you could close the TID 5 years earlier than the 20-year maximum life of the district, and I'll kind of go over that last final. I'll point your eyes in that direction here too. One of the final bullet points it's important to understand is that, you know, there's a but-for test and kind of why you're creating the district, and it's the sites proposed for this development are currently vacant due to inadequate infrastructure, and that it's been determined that development of this area wouldn't occur just solely as a result of private investment. So creating this TID districts allows you to add those that increment to pay for these projects to develop these sites. So that said, I'll have you flip to page 7. You can see a map of the district. It's kind of a bucket between Industrial Drive, West James Street, and APC Way, excuse me. So just so you get an idea of the location there, and those parcels are colored in blue. And then if you turn to page 10, another test outside of the but-for test that you need to pass is what's simply called the 12% test. What this test is asking is looking at the total equalized value, including all of your TIDs within the city, and that number is the 475 million number at the top of that table. And then you can't have increment in existing TIDs plus the base of the new TID that exceeds 12% of that $475 million. So this table just kind of simply runs through that math. So that 57 million is 12% of that, and then it looks at your increment value at TID 3 and TID 4, and then adding the base of 4.3 million of this TID. So you just barely passed that 12% test, but all that means is it's a good time to create the TID, in that should you have any economic appreciation in the other TIDs, you know, you may not have been eligible to do that. So it's a good time to be creating this one based on the values that have just been released by the DOR. Then we'll skip to page 17. This table at the bottom is looking at the project list. Like I said, we've identified $1 million, but we've optioned it out in terms of you know, how you spend those dollars. There's certain improvements under, you know, option 1 to the various utilities. There's the option for $1 million to only developer incentives, and then option 3 is kind of a mix between the two. So you have infrastructure improvements only, development incentives only, and then a mix or a blend between those two. So those are kind of the 3 options. So you'll notice in the language that, you know, this isn't going to be the exact costs, but should you add projects or need another significant improvement, you'll have to amend. And certainly if you have some projects that you're realizing you're not going to do, you can take that out in the same amendment. So you can amend the district several times. So certainly you have that flexibility in the future should you realize increment to pay for other projects within the district. So beyond that, I'll point you to page 22 and 23. 22 and 23 looks at the development and some assumptions, and so 22 is showing you the value that is assumed. That's that $4.8 million that I laid out, so that's kind of the table there and the potential development listed. And then table 23 looks at that assessed value, applies it to your current tax rate, and we're not showing that tax rate moving up or down in the future. And that shows the total increment generated. So you can kind of see the backwards L in that orange part of the tax increment. At the bottom, you'll see $1.925 million. So just under $2 million of project costs that you can pay for. So we've identified the $1 million of project costs. The other remainder is for admin costs that you'll get for accounting, and other fees from, you know, specific city staff that would be working on this and allocating some time to help you know, administer this TID throughout its life. So that said, you can kind of see the two. We've identified the 2 development incentives if you did it under a PAYGO next to that in gray, so you can kind of see, you know, should you offer a development incentive under the first proposed development, and then also under the second proposed development. It kind of gives you that flexibility to do that. You could also do it all at once, you know, should you need to. So it's important to note, you know, kind of how this is laid out to give you that flexibility. Finally, the next page, page 24, is just the overall. This is really the meat of this TID dinner here. You're looking at a cash flow of revenues, expenditures, and then your balance throughout the life of the TID. And you'll see the kind of lightly orange highlighted at the bottom right in 2035. That's our expected TID closure, and that's because the accumulations of the tax increment is actually going above and beyond any principal outstanding and any future costs that you would have, you know, any project costs that you would have outstanding. So you've essentially, you know, made yourself whole, and you're above any outstanding debt. So, you know, you'd be eligible to close the TID at that time. Certainly, you could keep it open, and there's also room for flexibility if you need to extend the TID, you know, in the future. But this would be something that annually you'll have to file a report with the DOR, as you're probably well aware of with TID 3 and TID 4. So same thing goes there. You'll be kind of monitoring it on an annual basis. So are there any questions?
I appreciate the flexibility that you built into that. Obviously, this is going to hinge on a developer's agreement aside from this, but getting the boundary set up for the TID is the first
Certainly.
step for us. So I did have one general question, just because we're creating a boundary that, you know, we have several parcels, and what happens to any increase in valuation that would come from one of those parcels within the boundary without a developer's agreement? Just organic inflation in the market over that
Right,
course
so
of that
you
TID.
collect that increment.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
So, and then now that you're locked in too, you can go above that 12%. You just can't create a new TID.
Okay.
So let's say you realize some appreciation without any development, and that the capacity there was like $170,000. So between the three TIDs, assuming it goes like this year, you'd probably be at that next year, but there's no penalty for it, or you just can't create a new TID. So you'd have to do a subtraction to do a future addition.
Okay.
You know, so, and there's, you know, various ways that we can kind of walk you through that should you find yourself in that scenario to desire to create a new TID, you
Okay.
know, and you're above that 12%.
Any questions from the council on this? Trina?
Oh, just clarification on what you were just saying. So you're saying that we can take a parcel out at some point in the future? If there's a adjacent property that's interested in building infrastructure? How does that work?
So, right, in the TID statutes, you have to, the TID has to be contiguous. So you couldn't take out like a property, and in this TID, given its size, there really, looking at the map, there really is no property that you could delete, and I would say you would cause issue there. You just couldn't go grab, you know, a bottom left parcel and say, oh, this is in TID 5 now. It has to be contiguous, so you'd have to grab parcels all the way to make sure that it connects. So, you know, think of Connect 4 or any board game where you kind of have to go one by one. That unfortunately the DOR, that's the rule in the state statute under that way, so.
Thank you. So we do have the property to take off, we do have the option to take off one of the segments if we need to add something on and then figure out our Connect 4.
Right, you'd figure out, okay, we want to add this parcel down here. You would have to add, you know, the other parcels to get to there. However, you may run into the 12% issue at that point, so it's kind of how much do you take off and add on? How much benefit does that truly provide for the city? Are there some in TID 3 or TID 4 that you could take off and then add on? Or do you just create a TID 6 that's one parcel? Certainly you can do that.
Thank you, it makes me feel better.
Good question, Trina. Any other questions from the council on this? Well, thank you for the summary, Brian. I appreciate that.
Certainly.
All right. If there's no further questions, then I'll entertain any action on the resolution 15-19 under new business number 1.
I move that we pass Resolution 1519, a resolution creating tax incremental district number 5, approving its project plan and establishing its boundaries.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 15-19 as read. Any discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, could we please take a roll call? Pat?
Gray,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reed,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Tylen,
Aye.
Traxler.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you. And thanks again, Brian. Thanks. All right, we'll move on to item number 2, which is review and consider Resolution 13-19, which is an exemption from Columbia County Library Tax 2020. This came through the Committee of the Whole. This is annual housekeeping that we go through every year. We'll also have another one coming up after that for Dodge County. Or no, let's see. Yep. Any questions on this one? If there's no questions, I'll entertain any action on item number 2.
I'll move to approve resolution number 13-19, exemption from Columbia County Library Tax 2020.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 13-19, exemption from Columbia County Library Tax 2020. Any discussion on the motion? If there is no discussion, will a voice vote do, Paul? Yes. All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. On to number 3, which looks like we got information submitted while the packet was being put in, but this is the exact same situation as the resolution for Columbia County. Any questions? If there are none, I'll entertain any action on new business number 3.
Make a motion to approve resolution 13-19, I'm sorry, 14-19, requests from Dodge County Library.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 14-19, request for exemption from Dodge County Library Tax per Wisconsin Statutes 43.64, sub 2, sub B. Any discussion on that? If there's no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Number 4 has been tabled to the next Committee of the Whole. Number 5 has been tabled. Number 6 has been tabled, so we will move on to number 7, which is operators licenses for the licensing period of July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2021. And I have 2 names in our packet, which is Alice Rich Welch and Stacy Kelly. Were there any additional, Pat? Just the 2 listed in the packet. Any discussion or questions on that? If there's no questions, I'll entertain any action on the operators licenses.
Motion to approve the operator's licenses.
Second?
A motion and a second to approve the operators licenses for the names read and for the term read. Any discussion on that? If there's no discussion, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Licenses have been approved. Next item is the city claims. There was a note in the claims packet. I will just read it since it's in the public packet, but it says purchase orders. You will see a number of closed purchase orders on this register indicated by those crossed out in red. Staff had submitted a support ticket to the Cassell, which is the software that's used for accounting, for a problem with updating and posting specific accounts payable transactions to the ledger. When the technician worked with staff, we found that a number of 2016 purchase orders were still shown as open and active. This is believed to be a residual issue from when the server crashed in March and the Cassell support staff had to rebuild our accounts payable data. We were instructed to close these purchase orders, but unfortunately it meant that all the activity would show up as being current and then reflect on the current purchase order registers. Are there any questions on this? Kim is here. Looks like most of these were in the DPW category. All right. If there are no questions, I'll entertain any action from the council on the city claims in the amount of $356,781.18.
Motion to approve the claims for $356,781.18.
Second.
All right, we have a motion And a second to approve the claims in the amount read. Is there any discussion on that? If there's no discussion, Pat, could you please take a roll call?
Johnson? Reed? Ryan? Tylen? Traxler?
Aye.
Gray? Unanimous.
All right. On to report of city officers. Patrick has not made it here yet, so he left me a few notes for several items he was going to report. The first is the crack filling project. That's currently underway. I saw them out working on the streets. It should be wrapped up by the end of this week, according to Patrick. The second item was the Highway 89 public information meeting was held last night for the upcoming project, highway project out there, that there was good attendance, and the questions were centered around the current real estate work being done out there, which is the staking. So, and lastly, he put a note on here about OnTech, which is our vendor we're working with to replace the servers at City Hall, and it sounds like the computer server migration was successful. I think that was done over this last weekend, so good to hear there's no problems there. I only had one thing Patrick shared with me. We did get a nice thank you letter from the school board members that showed up here at the last council meeting to talk about their facilities committee work, et cetera. So I'll pass that around and let you all read that. I thought it was a very nice gesture. So unless anyone else has anything up here, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? We'll be adjourned for a few minutes and return with the committee of the whole then. Thank you.